Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your career or candidate search, brought to you by VIP. I'm your host, Casey Hasten. I'm an executive recruiter, director of recruiting with VIP, and your all-around hiring guru. And you know I love to bring you new and exciting people each week, and today is no different. So today on the show, I'd like to welcome Dr. Carol Parker Walsh, founder of both Carol Parker Walsh Consulting and the Career Rebel Academy, keynote speaker, recovering attorney, and three-time Amazon best-selling author. Carol's mission is to help women in midlife with a proven methodological, I think I said that right, yet unapologetic approach to getting the career they want by discovering their purpose, amplifying their expertise, and successfully elevating their life and career. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Walsh.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
Well, you know, I always start the podcast with this question first. How did we get connected?
Networking.
It was
right?
networking, but it was networking on the part of your assistant, Ashley.
Yes.
Because she went out there and she was looking for podcasts for you, and she reached out to us on your behalf.
Yes. Exceptional at that. And so she's really good at trying to find places that feel aligned with, my message and what I'm about, and, to share that out in the world. And then we had an amazing conversation, and now here we are.
I know. Now we're going to let everybody hear our conversation.
Yes.
So tell me about yourself and how you began your career helping women and, elevate their life and career.
Yeah, well, I have spent a career in the employment space for almost 30 years. I started off as an employment attorney. I've done organizational consulting. I've done a lot of team group development and been in HR and the like. But really the catalyst for me doing this work, right after I finished my doctorate degree, where I was researching the experiences of women and identity development of how we come to understand who we are and how we do that in relationship to our career choices and things of that nature. I was in a massive near fatal car accident. And I remember I was coming home on a 2-lane road, working on a weekend, like many high achievers do. And it was a 2-lane road heading home, and a drunk driver was coming at me in my lane. And I heard a voice as if it was sitting in the car next to me that said, "Turn now." And I remember at the time thinking of instantly, like, where do I turn? Because on one side, it was off the side of a cliff. And on the other side, it was onto oncoming traffic. But I listened to the voice because I knew if the car had hit me head on, I wouldn't be here. So I turned into oncoming traffic. And even though I did get hit and I got injured and had a recovery period, I survived. And the thing for me that resonated year after year was that voice, "Turn now." And what I realized is that I had been hearing that voice for so many years already in relationship to my career. Hearing the voice, the whispers of, is this really what you want to do? Are you happy with what you're doing? Do you really want to stay in this for another 20 years? Just all of these voices that I was hearing that were egging me on to really make a move and make a change. But like so many, I really didn't heed that voice. And I didn't because I didn't know what my options were. And the options didn't seem overly appealing. Do I leave and then do what? Do I lose my title, my income, my reputation in terms of the work that I'm doing in the world? And so I stayed stuck. And what that taught me was that I think there are so many other women. And what I realized through research and years of doing this work now, so many other women are hearing that voice as well and are choosing not to listen to it, and then end up in places where they don't want to be. And almost as if I had stayed the course on that car and on that day, while I definitely would not be here, I think a lot of times women stay on that course and then they do die, but it's a spiritual, emotional, they're burnt out, they're frustrated, they just live half a life because they're staying the course and not listening to that voice that said turn. So that started me on my journey of really understanding what it meant to listen to that voice and to figure out what you want to do and to find the pathway to be able to do that. And once I went through that process, I knew I wanted to help other women do the same. And so that really for me was the catalyst that said, there's something to this whisper that we need to listen to, and let that be the starting place for us to be able to engage in doing the work we're really meant to do in the world.
That is so beautifully said. And I don't think you shared with me about the car wreck when we first talked. That's amazing. And
No.
thank God you listened to that small voice, intuition, your gut, whatever you want to call it. And I think
Yeah.
as you were speaking about your journey, I was kind of reflecting back on mine too, in that, I was that stuck person that wasn't listening to that voice. And once I did listen to that voice, it's like, Katie, bar the door, because you're not going to stop me, right?
Right.
And so it's
Yeah,
really,
and I think that happens so often. We do hear the voice, but there's so many practical, particularly at women in midlife, right? We hear the voice, but then we have kids who are about to go to college, we have aging parents, we have, health hefty 401ks, we have a pretty hefty salary, we have a pretty cushiony, kind of life in our positions or in our titles. And so while we hear the voice, we often kind of kick it under the rug because we're like, wait a minute, because we don't think that we have another alternative.
I agree with you 100%. And I think that there's something to be said for those people that aren't walking in your shoes, like your children, like your parents, whoever that is. Because I know when I made the career, I was a CFO, and I totally stepped away from accounting and became a recruiter. My mom literally told me I had lost my mind. And I was like, but why? Why can't I do this?
That is so common. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, is that you hear other people who are thinking, but you've achieved the American dream or the societal idea of success. And so why would you ever walk away from it? Like the idea is so interesting to me that we don't foster this idea of loving what you do, being happy at what you do. When people talk about that, they make it sound like that's just a byproduct. And if you get that, you're lucky, but that's not what you go after, right? Because work actually is work, and that's what you should be focused on. And so we find ourselves trapped because of either family commitments or cultural commitments or societal commitments, and other people saying that you're crazy to walk away. And we start to believe that. But what we don't do is listen to our own voice and, like you said, our own intuition, and follow that path. And we listen to other people thinking that maybe we are being impractical. And so we stay right there and end up staying trapped. And like I said, emotionally and spiritually, like, die a slow death.
Yeah, for sure. I was not, now that I have gone through this journey, kind of like you have, and I see what it looks like to be fulfilled and be living in your passion, I can't believe I did that for so long. And I was in that accounting world for over 20 years. And I'm just like, wow, just like you said 30 years, right? So
Yeah.
I think this segues really nicely, because you do talk about the danger of looking to others for answers, approval, and permission of what to do and who they are in this world. And obviously, I feel like this is super common, especially for young professionals. So what is some advice you can give to individuals who struggle with this?
Yeah, I would say to learn how to, first and foremost, listen to your own voice, trust your own wisdom, and lean into that. Because, we've seen the latest headlines that, what is it, 72% of people who left their jobs and jumped into something different, during the recession, during the pandemic, are actually regretting it and are trying to either get back to where they were before or doing something different. And I think that is a clear indicator and a direct relationship to the fact that we don't spend time figuring out what we want, that we don't spend time listening to our voice. And so you make these leaps into something that everyone else is recommending, or everyone else is telling you you'd be great at, or it looks good on the outside because of salary, title, or any of those kind of external factors. But what we don't do is spend the time to really figure out internally, what we value, what we love, what we really love to do, what we don't want to do anymore, right? Really understanding our zone of geniuses and
Mm-hmm.
operating there, because there is a possibility to do work that you may not never thought you would do before, but do that exceptionally well, become exceptionally successful at it, make a tremendous amount of money at it, and be perfectly happy and fine. That is just not the path. Like for me, it's not being a lawyer. I'm more successful and more financially successful in doing what I do now than I was when I practiced law, because I was limited. And I was limited not only in the field, but I was limited myself because I wasn't operating in my highest capacity at my
Mm-hmm.
best level and in my zone of genius. And when you can never operate at that maximum capacity because you're following what everybody else says, you're not going to achieve, even though it looks like it, you're not really going to achieve the level of success that's really potentially out there for you. So I would tell people, listen to yourself, figure out what you want, ask yourself the very simple question. And I know it sounds simple, but it's more complicated than you think. Ask yourself, what do I want? What do I enjoy? What do I love? What am I really good at? Just spend some time with that, and you'll be surprised by what gets unfolded for you and what you actually discover. And it may be in line with what you're doing, or maybe a couple of degrees off of what you're doing, or it may be something completely different that you never really explored because you've never given yourself the permission or opportunity to explore it.
That is so, so true. And I also like to tell people when they're trying to figure out what it is that they're passionate about, I always like to say, what did you like to do when you were a little kid?
Yes.
You know, what were
Yeah,
you
that's a
naturally
great
drawn
one.
to? So,
Yeah. Yeah. I have my clients do an exercise I call the chunks of 10, where I just tell them to look at, like, starting from birth to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, just look at those chunks in your life and think about, what were people always coming to you for? What were you always known for? What did people tease you about? What did you find yourself doing all the time that you absolutely love to do? And you will find that the answers are within, that they're right there inside, that you've either put away or tucked away or ignored because maybe someone told you that's not practical. Or maybe someone told you that's unrealistic. Or maybe you just thought, based on your circumstances or the things around you, that that's not something that you could go after. But by spending the time, I love that. I love that, Casey. By spending some time just asking, what did you love when you were little, can give you so much insight into where it is that you should be going in the future.
so what did you love when you were little? I'm curious.
I loved working with people and answering their questions and helping them figure out what they wanted to do. Like, I was always the one that people came to and said, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? I'm thinking about, changing that. Do you think that's a good idea? I mean, for some reason, I was always the person that people asked advice around, or wanted to get my input, or wanted to get my suggestion, or wanted to get my thoughts around it. I don't know why, but that was one of the things and I loved doing that. I loved helping people and teaching people and informing people of new information or new insights that they may never have thought of before. I was always the one that told people about, when I was little, the new movie or the new toy or the new or the new something that was out and about. I was the one that kind of was in the know and would share that with people and was so excited about doing that. So when I look over the course of my career, whether it was as an attorney, whether it was at, being an HR director, whether it was doing organizational consulting, fundamentally for me, the through thread through everything I did was to help inform people and inspire people and give them the tools and information they needed to make the best possible decisions for themselves. And I still do that to this day.
I love that. I just recently took a new assessment that, and it's probably not new, it's just new to me. It's called the Core Values Index. Have you seen that one?
I have. Mm-hmm.
So I am a merchant innovator, but I'm very strong merchant, very, very strong, which they said was very
Mm-hmm.
unusual because my score was so high. But my core value for the merchant is love.
Mm.
And that comes across in probably everything that I do because I just love people so much. But I think it's great that what I do, I get paid for,
Mm-hmm.
but I would do it anyway. I don't tell my boss.
Yeah.
But I love what I do. I love that I get to change people's lives by helping them find their passion in their job. It's such a
Yeah.
great place to be in for me. So, and when
Yeah.
I took that assessment and it said my core value is love, I was like, it is. It really is.
Yeah.
I don't just want to talk to these candidates so that I can help them find a job. I genuinely care about them.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And the thing that I love about that, and this is I think the problem with a lot of assessments, there are a lot of assessments out there, but the problem is people don't understand how to take that valuable information and use it to their advantage. They I believe people take assessments thinking that it's going to give them the answer, as
mhm.
opposed to giving them some really vital information that allows them to process it, to utilize it for a better way, right? So some people may, for example, take that assessment and realize that they really value love and not know, and in their mind, they're like, what job values love? Like, where's the job description where in the job description it
Right.
says value love? And I tell people that that's not what it's about. When you understand what your fundamental values are, what you really love to do, if you remove title and job from it, it expands the opportunity for what you can do. So if you love people, what are the type of jobs you can do where you get the opportunity to really help and give back to other people?
Mhm.
If you love to teach and inform people, what are the different ways in which you can teach and inform people? It could be a myriad of ways. You can do it as a teacher, you can do it as a trainer, you could do it as a consultant, you could do it as a nurse, you could do it in multiple ways. And if you start getting to the core, really, of what you love to do, what you value, and what you're good at, man, the world becomes your oyster. And so many times what we do is, and I did this myself, well, I'm a lawyer, so I have to look for a career that's peripheral to that, right? I
Mhm.
can do these 5 other things because I'm in the box of law. And as instead of putting myself in the box of my title, which is what a lot of us do, you want to expand that box and really look at what you're good at and what you love to do. That's not just defined by the profession you're in, but really by the core essence of who you are and your zone of genius, your values, and your capabilities. So I love that analogy. I love how you looked at that and see that in the work that you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. And I see it in everything that I do. And I'm an assessment junkie. I think I've taken every assessment out there now that I've taken this one. Um, but I'm always looking for new ones. But I took one that was so informative, and it really showed me where my weaknesses were, but also where my strengths were. And after
Hmm.
taking that, I'm like, that's why I don't like to do that. And it basically came down
Hmm.
to, I'm a big picture person. I'm one of these creatives that has these big ideas, but I don't follow through. That's not my zone of
Yes.
genius. I say,
Yes.
here's a big idea. Somebody catch that. And so,
Yes, I'm the exact same way, and it's so important. It's why law, which is very detail oriented, was
yeah,
not my zone of
uh,
genius. Because
accounting,
yes, right, exactly. Isn't it funny that we ended up in these places?
right.
But yeah, it's so true. I am a big picture visionary. I can see the whole forest, but if you ask me to get down into the trees, I you will lose me in that place. So, and it is really good to know that,
Hmm.
because that way whether or not you should, it helps you to know what to say yes to, what opportunities you want to go after, and opportunities that you like, this isn't going to be the best suited for me, because I know you're asking me to be in the trees a little bit more than I know that I could do. And even though I can get in the trees, where I know I operate at my maximum
Hmm.
level, to give you the best ROI is if you allow me to stay back and look at the forest and give you some input around what the bigger picture looks like. And
Uh,
when you understand that about yourself, you value that more, and you can actually start negotiating and demanding for those things better in interviews or for raises, because you know the value you bring to an organization. You know that because this is my zone of genius, you know how and why it can make tremendous impact on your bottom line.
I hate to keep bringing this back to me, but I'm a perfect example. Because I mean, that's exactly what happened. Like when I started with VIP, is that, I'm not doing anything like what they hired me to do. They did not hire me to do a podcast or to go out and do all this networking or, a lot of the things that I do. But as I've figured out what it is that really makes me happy, and maybe that's why I'm so happy in my job. I mean, I get to do everything I want to do. They've allowed me that space to grow and to branch out and to do different things. I mean, we're a recruiting agency. Why are we doing a podcast? You know, it's
Mm,
out there, but I really
right.
love that. And
Yeah.
Obviously, I am very fulfilled, and I want everybody else to be fulfilled in their job. So, what does it look like to be fulfilled in your job?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll answer it by saying really fundamentally, each of us defines what that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
So only you can really create that formula. But I will say this, I believe that fundamentally, if you are working in your zone of genius, and I use that word a lot, and I'm referencing Gay Hendricks' work around the zone of genius and how he talks about the four stages of that. And there's a zone of excellence that I think most people end up in, and that to me are like law or accounting, like things that we know how to do, we can get paid to do, and yes, you can make a career out of it. But zone of genius is taking it to a different level. And it's not just things that you're good at, it's things that you're naturally good at and that you love to do and that you can really make an impact. So for me, at the bottom line, if you're working in your zone of genius, if you're doing work that's aligned to your values and you're doing it at a place where you feel some type of alignment, and it's also aligned with your bigger vision for your life, is your work allowing you to have the life that you want?
Mm-hmm.
Is it, if you want to travel, are you working 100 hours a week and you're not able to do that, right? If you have a family, are you working 100 hours a week and not able to see your family? So there's a misalignment there, not only with your values, but also your life, and the vision and the things that you want to do for your life. So I think if you're working in your zone of genius and you are aligned with your values, and studies have shown, particularly for us when we move into midlife and we get older, that we're making an impact, that we're giving some type of contribution, that we are looking at our lives and seeing that there's meaning and that there's something that we're doing that's making a difference some way, shape, or
Mm-hmm.
form, whether it's in your community or globally. It doesn't really matter as long as you feel like what I'm doing is really making an impact. I think if those three things are present, then for me, that's what I would call a fulfilling career. But
Uh,
you define what those three things are.
exactly. I like to think that everybody wants to leave some kind of legacy, which I think is exactly
Yes.
what you were just saying. And I want
Hmm.
my legacy to be that she raised the consciousness of the world, because I want everybody, I want to just
Mm.
shake everybody and say, you can have this too. Wake up, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's what I think my legacy is going to be. So tell us real quick a little bit about Career Rebel Academy. Is this just for women that are going, middle-aged women that are going through changes? What is, that sounded horrible.
Yeah.
Maybe we should
It,
edit
it, it
that.
is. It's for high achieving women at midlife.
Okay.
And it is designed for women at midlife because I believe that the experiences, the
Hmm.
challenges that women at midlife particularly go through needs to be acknowledged and addressed through the process of career change. So I think it can't just be one or the other. And having that experience myself and really wanting to create a space for women at that age and space where I think it's a little bit more challenging to make the change, I did design it specifically for women at midlife so that we can touch on some key points and topics that are really impacting us at that space. But the academy, it's a 6-month program where we look at what I call my framework. We work through this framework where, and I do it because, 3 A's, I can remember them easier. So I love them better. But we go through three aspects of it. And the first part is what I call ascertain. And it's really a discovery phase. It's really where we're starting to, as I said earlier, ask those deeper questions about what do I really want? That's where the chunks of 10 exercise comes in. We do some assessments to get greater clarity around our strengths, our weaknesses, what we really lean into and don't. And it helps us to get the foundation of knowing what opportunities we really want to say yes or no to, the places and spaces that we know we can really thrive and do our best work, and really assessing what's really important to us, right? Not just the title and the office and those type of things, but what's really valuable to us. And then once we have that clarity, we move into what I call the amplify phase. And in that phase is where we build a brand around that. And so that's where you're communicating to the world, this is who I am, this is what I have to offer, these are the skill sets that, I know I could bring that return on investment, that I could really thrive and do something amazing here, and so that's where we really communicate it out to the world. So the first part is where that internal work, the second part is where we kind of amplify that and put that out there in the world. And in the final phase, in the activation phase, that's when we really develop a strategic plan around three fundamental things that I call implement, evaluate, recalibrate, which is where we start putting those things into action. We start stepping into these new spaces and places that we may find ourselves or want to be a part of. But we also spend some time understanding how to evaluate, are we moving in the right direction? Is it continually aligned with my life, my vision for the things that I want to do? And if something's not quite right, how do I then recalibrate in order to pivot to then make a move or take a different direction that maybe I thought this was the way to go, but maybe I'm thinking there's something else I want to do. Because as things come up through the lifespan, we want to be flexible and fluid to be able to make adjustments and pivot when it makes the best sense for us. And so I create this container of 6 months because it gives them an opportunity to try things out, to test the waters in a community of support and with the backup that they need to be able to do that. Because doing the stuff in isolation can be really scary because you'll have people telling you, are you crazy for what you're doing? And so it's nice to have a community that's like, we're all in this together. We're all supporting each other to get some networking, some feedback, some advice from other people who are in the same, kind of situation. And it just inspires you and empowers you and encourages you to continue to listen to your own voice and continue to learn to trust yourself, to have your own back and to be able to go after what you want. So that's what we do. We go through these 3 A's, this framework that we work through in this community of support and really be able to help us overcome any of the, like I said, familiar or societal or cultural narratives or belief systems that have really held us back from going after having the courage and commitment to go after what we want. Because change is hard, right? I always say that the currency of dreams, pain and discomfort is the currency of dreams. And so in order to get to the other side, there's going to be some uncomfortability. And it's nice to have a place of support to be able to support you while you're going through these kind of pain points or these growing pains or these changing pains in order to step into what it is that you want to do ultimately next.
I love that. Can you say that say that again?
Discomfort is the currency of dreams.
That is awesome. Okay. I have one last question for you because we're almost out of time, but you'd mentioned something. Okay. What's the second A? Amplify?
Amplify.
Okay. And this is where we're talking about the brand. So how could somebody brand themselves to stand out as an expert in their interview or in their industry or even in like a job interview?
Yeah, that's a great question. Fundamentally, your brand is your unique promise of value. So it's, what do I want to be known for? What do I bring to the table, unlike anyone else around me? So to take an example, as an accountant or even a lawyer, right? You could throw a nickel and hit 500 of us or people who have been in our field. But what differentiates you? What do you bring to the table that's very different from any other lawyer or accountant that they would particularly want to interview and bring into the job? And so part of your branding is understanding what that is. A lot of that comes from finding that through thread through your life and career by going back and looking at the things that you've done before, that you're talented at, that you're gifted at, and the way that you do the work that's different than anyone else. And the credibility factors that you develop to support that, to the evidence that shows that you do things in a way that may be slightly different from everyone else, but they deliver on the results, and they deliver on the results in the way that the company itself would love to have you come and do that for them, right? So really your brand is your unique promise of value. It's like, what is it about you that differentiates you and separates you? I find the best way to do that, particularly in an interview, is to frame that in a narrative and in a story, to not just roll out your credentials or, that you went to this school or did this job, but why is it special and different? Why is it unique to this particular organization? Why is it that you're the one that is so different from everyone else that they will want you to be the one to deliver on that, other than above anyone else that they may potentially bring in there? So it's like, what is your unique promise of value? And that's the key to really the foundation of your brand, and then to be able to communicate that brand out so that people too can understand, oh, this is what brings what differentiates them from other people.
I'm sitting here kind of smirking because you just said exactly what I tell my candidates to do in an interview. So reaffirmed. Thank you.
You are welcome.
I call it a hook,
Yeah. Yeah.
And basically I say, you don't want to go through your certifications just like you just said. You want to take something on your resume that's related to what it is they're looking for and tell a story.
Yes.
So,
yeah, stories are memorable. I mean,
yes.
think about it. We remember stories well before we remember facts. Our brains are just wired that way.
Yep.
And so if you can tell a story related to what it is that you bring to the table and how you know it's going to impact the organization, that will be the thing that the interviewer and everyone else talks about to everybody else in the organization. They're like, did you hear the story? Did you hear what this person had to say? Versus the person that comes in and says, well, I went to this school and I did this, and all of which is like boring yawn.
And we just read it on your
read
resume.
that already. And I was just about to say, they already read it on your resume. So why are you repeating it?
Yes.
To them? Absolutely. Yes.
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. I knew this was going to be a fabulous conversation, and I have so not been disappointed. We are going to have to wrap it up, but I'm not going to let you go until you answer my VIP questions.
Okay.
Okay. So, if you were chosen to be one of the first colonists on Mars, what 3 things or people would you take with you?
Okay. Alive or dead? Hopefully it's alive or dead.
It's up to you.
Okay. So I'm assuming I could bring my kids. So I'm going to leave them off because I'm not leaving my kids if I go to Mars. So I would bring Katherine Johnson, Coco Chanel, and my Aunt Mary.
Okay. Who's Katherine Johnson?
Katherine Johnson was the woman from Hidden Figures who helped them go to the moon. So I would bring her because she's exceptionally brilliant. And if we're going to be in Mars, I need someone who can understand thermodynamics and all of that. So I need someone brilliant. I love Coco Chanel because she's a risk taker and a fashion icon, and is a rebel in and of her own right. So I love that sense of style that she would bring to the table. And my aunt was a woman who had the common sense, she only had a high school diploma, but she was the most brilliant woman that I knew. I mean, you talking about common sense and street smarts. Like, this woman was able to impart wisdom that has really inspired and changed my life. And so I definitely would have her there because of that as well.
Oh, that's beautiful. Everybody needs somebody like that in their life, for sure.
Absolutely.
Sure. Okay, so what is one thing you do each morning to set your day up for success?
Oh, I spend every morning doing what I call a thought download. So I just, how you wake up in the morning and you just feel a certain kind of way, or sometimes you wake up and you're inspired. Other days you wake up and you're like, you want to put the covers back over your head.
Yep.
So I spend every morning just dumping out what's on my brain onto a sheet of paper. I just, like, whatever I'm feeling, whatever's going on, whatever's just rumbling around up there. Because for me, it's almost like a purging, a cleaning out, so I can see any of the mess that maybe is going on, or lingering thoughts or feelings around something. And then I spend time just working through those just to get my mindset and my heart set really in the right place so that I could do the best possible work I could do for the day. Because if I'm holding on to any kind of residual mess, if you will, then it's not going to allow me, I'm going to carry it through everything that I do for the day. And I'm not going to be as successful as I can. So I like to just kind of clean out my mind, clean out my brain a little bit, just to be able to see clearly and focus clearly so I can do my best possible work.
It's not going to surprise you. I do the same thing.
We're so alike.
I know. I think we were separated at birth or something.
Yes. This is from another mister.
Yeah. Okay, so my final question. If your life's work was being summarized in a news article, what would the headline be?
Ooh. I would say this woman helped millions of others design an epic life and career they loved.
I love it. How do people get in touch with you?
I would say head to my website, www.carolparkerwalsh.com. That's a great starting place to find me on my social media. I'm frequent LinkedIn and Instagram as well. And, I have my podcast if you want to hear a bit more about me, but heading to my website is a great starting place because that will give you a lot more information about me and send you off into some other directions if you have some interest in learning more, reading more.
I love it. Well, I have so enjoyed our time here together today, and I just have one last thing to say to you. You are a VIP.
Ah! Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today. Join us next week here on the We Are VIP podcast. I'd love to know how we can help you be a VIP. To find out more, log on to wearevip.com.